Hello everybody, my name is Mike Geig, and in this video we are going to be looking at basic keyboard input in Allegro 5. Now what we have before us should look pretty familiar. This is the code we've been working with for some time. You will notice first and foremost that I've removed a couple lines from the screen here, namely the AL wait and the AL flip display, because now that we're using input, we are going to have a different way of utilizing those. Another thing I want to point out is that we're still using the Allegro primitives.h so that we can represent something on the screen, and I don't need to include another .h file to use keyboard input, so I don't need to add anything there. Now I'm going to be working with a game loop, a very primitive game loop in this example, so I'm going to need a variable for that. And I'm going to be working with a graphical image on the screen, and so I'm going to need a couple of variables to help me out with that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add bool done equals false. That just lets us know that we're not done yet. And then I'm going to create two position variables. I'll call position x, and I'm going to make that width divided by 2, and int position y equals height divided by 2. That'll just put us right there in the middle of the screen, and keep track of where our square is going to be. Alright. What I need to add here, I guess I erased this a little prematurely, is al init primitives add-on. We've seen that before. I accidentally deleted it when I was getting this ready. And a new one, a new thing we need to initialize is the al install keyboard, which allows us to work with keyboard keys. Alright, so what we're going to do is we are going to essentially set up an event queue and tell Allegro to watch for keyboard events. And then as keyboard events are fired, we can handle that input. Okay, we're going to do this in a very basic fashion in this video, and in the next video we're going to get a little bit more complex, a little bit more fluid with our functionality. So what I want to do is I want to utilize the event queue that I've created, which I've actually added right up here underneath the AL display before this video started. So if you're following along, you'll definitely want to type this in. It's Allegro _event _queue. It's a pointer to an event queue which is nulled out. And that is essentially just, it's like how you stand in line. We're creating a line. We're creating a queue that we can fill with events. Alright. And now that we've created our queue variable, now we want to initialize that variable to be used. So since my name is event queue, I want to use that equals al create event queue. That just initializes our event queue and gets it ready to be worked with. Next thing we need to do is we need to register our keyboard so it knows to fill the queue with events. So I'm going to do al register event source, and my event source is going to be my queue is going to be event queue, and my source is going to be al get keyboard event source. There we go. So we're saying, hey, go to the keyboard, get that as an event source, register it to the queue so that we can fill the queue with events. Okay. So far so good. We've essentially created a queue, we've initialized the queue, we have installed our keyboard, we've registered our keyboard to the queue. Okay. So what we want to do now is we kind of want to build our primitive game loop. And I'm just going to do that very simply, while not done. Remember, done is that Boolean variable we had before. So while not done. The next thing we want to do is we want to create an Allegro event. Let's call it EV. So every time an event is fired, EV is going to be the variable we store the details about that event in so we can work with it. And now we're just going to tell our computer to wait. I'll wait for event. And we will pass in our event queue. And we will pass in a dereferenced EV so that it knows where to store that event information. So essentially what we're doing is we're saying, hey, Allegro, wait for something to happen. Okay? And so the only thing that can happen in this instance, because there's only one thing registered to that queue, is keyboard events. Now this is a poor design for actual game development, and we'll see more about that when we look into our game engine, our timed game loop. We'll figure out how to make this much better. For now, this is what we do for simple keyboard input. Now there's two types of events that can get fired with your keyboard. Either you push the key down, or you let go of a key and the key comes up. Those are the two keyboard events. And we're going to look at each of those real quick here. First, I want to do something if I push down on my keys. So I'm going to do if ev.type, ev is our event, so if the type of the event is Allegro Event Key Down. We have pushed down on a key. Okay? We know we've pressed the key. Now let's see what key we pressed. Okay? Or let's check a certain keys that we want. So if in this example, if someone presses the arrow keys, I want something to move around on the screen. But if they press the A key, I don't really care. I'm just going to ignore the A key. And so the easiest way to do that is just with a switch statement. And I'm going to do switch ev.keyboard.keycode. And that is pulling the key code of the key pressed from our event. And I have a couple cases here. I'm going to do case Allegro key up. They have pushed the up key. And in this case, I want to move my square up. Now remember these variables I created here, the position X and position Y? Those are the variables we're going to manipulate. So if they push the key up, I want to say position Y, lowercase y, minus equals 10. Alright, and then break. So if they push the key up, our Y value is going to decrease, moving us towards the top of the screen. Well, let's say we do case Allegro key down. In that case, I'm going to do position Y plus equals 10. Alright, so we move down the screen. Next, I'm going to do case Allegro key left. In this case, we're moving towards the left of the screen, so position X minus equals 10. I typed that all wrong. I messed that all up. Okay. And then finally, case Allegro key right. And I'm going to say position X plus equals 10. Okay. Very good. So what we have here is we have our event queue set up. We wait for an event to fire off. When an event fires off, so the second we hit a key, the millisecond we hit a key, it's going to fire off this event here, and we're going to catch it, and we're going to read, hey, what was the code of that key press? Say, hey, if it's up, we move up. If it's down, we move down. Left, we move left. Right, we move right. Okay? And let's go ahead and fill in the rest of our code here, and then we can test this. So we have these X and Y values that are changing through our key presses, but we want to be able to see it. We want to be able to visually see it on the screen. So let's set something up here. This should look familiar to you. I'll draw a filled rectangle. I hope that looks familiar to you. And we're going to pass in position X, position Y, and then we're going to pass in position X plus 30. We'll make this 30 pixels wide, and position Y plus 30, and then a color. I bet you can guess which one I'm going to do. Hideous magenta. Alright. So that'll draw us a rectangle, and that'll draw a rectangle wherever we have our X and Y values. And then we want to do AL flip display, which will bring our back buffer to our front buffer. And then we want to clear our back buffer out. Actually, you know what? I'm not going to clear a back buffer out, just so you can see kind of what happens. So we're going to run this. I'm going to pull this over here. First things first, we're going to notice nothing is on the screen. And that's because as soon as we enter this loop, we wait for an event. So we haven't had a chance to draw yet, because we're still up here waiting. And we'll fix that when we get to our time game loop as well. So I'm going to hit a button, and there we go. I hit a button, as soon as I hit the button, we caught this event, and then it allowed us to draw on the screen. So, see this weird like worm pattern we got going on? That's because I'm not clearing the back buffer. That's like drawing with an Etch-a-Sketch without shaking it. Okay? Obviously, we want to clear the back buffer to prevent that from happening. Another thing you'll see here is I can't get out. I'm hitting escape, I'm hitting this button, nothing's working. The reason for that is because we are only accepting keyboard events, right? And we're not catching the escape key. So my escape key is not doing anything, and this isn't doing anything because we're not accepting display events. We're only accepting keyboard events. So we can look at that here in a bit. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here and hit the square in the upper, or in the top of the screen, which stops our running and brings us back to normal mode. Now I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do AL clear to color. And this will clear our back buffer to black. And then when we run this again, you will see that we don't get that worming effect. Because every time we draw it and flip it, we erase what's behind it. So we don't get that worm effect anymore. And you can see with the keys, I'm moving around the screen. Another thing you'll notice is that if I hold a key down, I don't keep moving. Just once. Because we're only catching this event once. If I press a key down, this key fires, right? And we do whatever it says to do. But if I hold that key, right, the event doesn't keep firing. The event only fires once when I push the key down. And in our next video, we're going to look to see how we can work with that and kind of use that to our advantage. Alright, so there's one other event type I told you about. It's called the Allegro Event Key Up. It's when we release a key, and we're going to look at that now. So I'm going to do if ev.type equals Allegro Event Key Up. So we've released the key. And I'm going to, as a matter of fact, scratch that, I'm going to do an else if. Since both events can't fire at the same time, I'm going to do an else if. Okay. And I'm going to check, just real quick, I don't need to switch state because I only care about one key for this example. And I'm just going to do ev, oh, that's my mistake, ev dot keyboard dot key code equals Allegro, I can't type right now, key escape. And if we press the escape key, or no, I apologize, if we let go of the escape key, this event will fire off, and we will do done equals true, and we will exit the loop. So we're still not reading events from the screen, but in due time, we can get there. So we see here, still blank screen. I'm typing, moving around. I just hit the escape key. I'm holding my escape key right now. I'm still able to move the square around, okay, because we're still firing off those key down events. And watch what happens. I'm about to let go of the escape key. I let go, and there we go. We leave the program. Because when I let go, the Allegro key event, or Allegro Event Key Up fired off, and we read that it was the Allegro key escape that I let go of, and so we said done equals true. Alright, so that in a nutshell is our basic keyboard input. There's a lot more we can do with this, and we'll have some more examples here for this chapter. But in a nutshell, that is it.